Welcome back, everyone. This is the fifth and yes, final part of our Chapter 16 lecture series. This section is entitled Politics in the Gilded Age. The focus question for this section is, was the Gilded Age political system effective in meeting its goals? If we were forced to choose one single word to describe the politics of the era of the Gilded Age, it would have to be this: corruption. Corruption was rampant throughout this period at all levels of government, local, state, and federal. The power and the money of new corporations threatened the very essence of political freedom. Examples of corruption in this period include New York City's Tweed Ring, which was run by a gentleman named William Boss Tweed, the person you see represented in this political cartoon right here. And essentially the Tweed Ring was not much more than a step above a street gang, and they exchange aid and gifts and bribes to the poor for votes in elections at both the local and the state level. And of course, when that aid and those bribes didn't work, they certainly were not above resorting to intimidation and even violence to achieve their aims. At the federal level, you had the Credit Mobilier scandal. This was a corporation on whose board sat several government officials, and this corporation used government money to essentially make contracts with itself, and they bribed politicians with shares of its stock in exchange for looking the other way at its illegal activities. There was also the whiskey ring, which was a collusion between government officials and whiskey manufacturers to evade the taxes on whiskey. These are only a few of the numerous examples of corruption that ran rampant through the political system in this period. Politically, the country at this time was pretty evenly divided. In fact, this political map showing the voting tendencies of the various states of the Union in this period does not look much different from the political map of today's breakdown of how the states vote in national elections. Republicans controlled the industrial North and Midwest and the agrarian West, and they were very strong, particularly among Protestants and African Americans. Democrats dominated the South and did well with Catholics and Irish Americans. The parties were closely divided, creating a political stalemate despite closely contested elections with nearly 80% voter turnout at the national level. Although the power, size, and scope of the federal government continued to expand rapidly in the second half of the 19th century, the federal government was still relatively small compared to modern standards. For their part, the Republicans supported a high tariff and pursued a policy based on reducing federal spending, paying the national debt, and withdrawing greenbacks, those dollars that were printed in such profusion during the Civil War in the North. Democrats opposed the high tariff, but resisted demands to increase the money supply. The nation returned to the gold standard in 1879. The nation had been taken off the gold standard during the Civil War, and it was hoped by putting it back on the gold standard in 1879, it would help reduce the wild swings up and down in the economy that the country experienced in the 1860s and 1870s. Although the politics of the era was pretty much at a stalemate, with both Republicans and Democrats holding roughly equal power and roughly equal influence upon the electorate, there was some reform legislation that managed to get passed in this era. This included the Civil Service Act of 1883, which established a merit system for government employees and essentially eliminated the old spoils system or patronage system where politicians elected to office tended to give government offices and positions to their own cronies and supporters. The Interstate Commerce Commission was established at this time, and its initial purpose was to regulate railroad rates across state lines, which would help speed up and make more efficient the railroad system and the transportation of goods across state lines through that system. Also, the Sherman Antitrust Act was established at this time, which in theory banned monopolies like those established by men like Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller. However, moving forward, and as we shall see in some of the chapters to follow, the government had a very spotty record of enforcing and interpreting the Sherman Antitrust Act, as corporations' influence and power on the federal government continued to grow unabated in this period. The government established the precedent that the national government could regulate the economy in this period, and this is a precedent that has never been let go since then. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes our Chapter 16 lecture series for your textbook, Give Me Liberty by Dr. Eric Foner. As always, study hard, and I'll see you soon.